Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? It is time for another DOP Division Outlook and Prediction. We are talking about the NL Central division in baseball. It was a tough kind of year for them, I would say, as a whole, as the five of them collectively together last year. But we're talking about the new things here in 2025. We'll be talking about these teams. If you missed it, last Friday we started with our DOPs. We did the AL West. So if you're a fan of any of those teams, whether it be the Astros, the Mariners, Rangers, the A's, or the Angels, go back, have a listen to that once you're done with this episode, of course, because we're talking about that NL Central. I'm not going to waste too much time here. Let's just jump right on into it and get into the good stuff by talking about the Milwaukee Brewers. That's how we're going to start things off. The Milwaukee Brewers last year in 2024, they were 93-69. They were 17th in starter ERA, 2nd in relief ERA, 6th in runs. They made it to the postseason as a division winner. Of course, they lost in the wild card round to the 6th-seeded Mets, 2-1 in that series. The Brewers took the second game after losing games 1, and of course, they lost game 3 as well. What a crazy game that was. And it's back to the drawing board for the Brewers. They had to make a lot of changes this year. Starting with who they ended up losing. Hobie Milner, gone. Joe Ross, adios. Frankie Montas, Gary Sanchez, Wade Miley, Colin Ray. But the two big names, Willie Adames, no longer around. And, of course, Devin Williams traded to the Yankees. Those two guys are big blows to a Brewers team here. They did bring in some guys, of course. Nestor Cortez joins the rotation. Grant Wolfram, Tyler Alexander, Mark Canha, who is on a non-roster deal as well, a minor league deal that is. And then Caleb Durbin. So, a couple of names there for you. When we take a look at the rotation, Freddie Peralta, still the ace of that staff. Tobias Myers, Nestor Cortez, Aaron Savali, and Aaron Ashby is what Fangraphs has as the starting five currently. When you take a look at that lineup, Jackson Chourio, what a year he had. First year in the big leagues, he bats first in right field. Christian Yelich, one-time MVP. The DH bats second. William Contreras, the catcher, batting third. Garrett Mitchell out there in center field bats fourth. Rhys Hoskins batting fifth at first base. Bryce Terang at second base, he bats sixth. Joey Ortiz, the shortstop, bats seventh. Sal Frelick in left field eighth. And then Oliver Dunn, third baseman, getting a shot, batting ninth currently as it stands. The bench looks like Eric Haas, Vinny Capri, Caleb Durbin, and of course Mark Canha is listed there as well on the non-roster invitee deal. When you take a look at that bullpen, remember a few years ago when they had always one of the most dominant closers in the ball game, whether it was Josh Hader, before it was Devin Williams, and then it was Devin Williams, and now they have listed Trevor McGill, who is a good reliever, but definitely the least dominant closing pitcher they've had in a few years, to go alongside Joel Payamps, Tyler Alexander, Connor Thomas, who they picked up in the Rule 5 draft, so let's see how he makes it through the year. Nick Mers, and some other guys there as well. Their IL has a couple of names on it, such as DL Hall, who they got in the Corbin Burns trade last year. Brandon Woodruff still kicking it on the IL, as well as Blake Perkins. So a couple of notable names there. When you take a look into the future, they're free agents for 2026. Of course, Tyler Alexander, Aaron Savali, and Nestor Cortez are all hitting the market. The Brewers hold mutual options for Brandon Woodruff and Rhys Hoskins, and they have a club option for Freddie Peralta at $8 million, and then William Contreras at $12 million. So a couple of options there for the Brewers as well. That is what Milwaukee is looking like entering 2025. Let's keep it going. Let's just bust through all these team profiles here quickly, and we'll get to the good stuff. So continuing on, we've got the Chicago Cubs, who finished tied second in the division. with an 83-79 record. They were 6th in starter ERA, 12th in relief pitcher ERA, 12th in runs. They finished 10 games back of the division behind the Brewers and 6 games back of the wild card. And this Cubs team had a little bit of a makeover, and it's a good one. They did lose some notable names. Jorge Lopez gone. Kyle Hendricks, longtime Cub. I think the last player from that 2016 World Series team, he is no longer there. Nick Madrigal, Mike Tauchman, Adbert Alzole. I always butcher that name. Patrick Wisdom, Drew Smiley, Cam Smith, Isaac Paredes, Hayden Wazinski, Cody Bellinger, Matt Mervis, Miles Mastrobuoni, and Juan Bello, all saying goodbye. But that means they have a lot of room for improvements, a lot of guys to bring in, and boy, did they bring in some names. Ryan Brazier, Ryan Presley, Vidal Brujan, Cody Patet, Kyle Tucker, the big acquisition there, Eli Morgan, Matthew Boyd, Carson Kelly, Colin Ray, little division snipe there from the Brewers, John Birdie, and Justin Turner. Boy, what a turnaround there for the Cubs. They're primed for a division win this year, in my mind. The rotation is as follows. Shota Imanaga, what an incredible rookie campaign he had. He is now the ace of that staff, with Justin Steele coming in the 2 spot. Jameson Taillon, Matthew Boyd, and Colin Ray is how the starting 5 look like. And that is a nice starting 5 to have. I very much like that rotation. And I might like the lineup even more. They got Ian Happ leading things off in left field, and then Kyle Tucker in right field. That's a nice 1-2 punch to start the game, with Seiya Suzuki, the designated hitter, batting third. Michael Busch, first baseman, bats fourth. Dansby Swanson at shortstop. Nico Horner, second baseman, he is there. Pete Crow Armstrong batting seventh in center field. Then you have Matt Shaw, the third baseman, who's on a non-roster invitee, so questionable there. And then Miguel Amaya, the catcher, batting ninth, is how that Cubs lineup looks like. The bench, Carson Kelly, Justin Turner, John Birdie, and Vidal Brujan, all guys they picked up this offseason. The bullpen, they've got that Ryan duo now, Ryan Presley and Ryan Brazier, both guys they trade for this offseason, alongside Caleb Thalbar, Julian Merriweather, Nate Pearson, Porter Hodge, among some other guys there. And of course, on the IL, Javier Assad currently holds a spot there. When you take a look in 2026, free agents Ryan Presley, Ryan Brazier, Caleb Thalbar, John Birdie, Kyle Tucker, it's a one-year rental. Could they keep him around? We'll have to see how that goes. They have a club option for Colin Ray at $6 million, and then mutual option for Justin Turner at $6 million. And then they also have a player option for Shota Imanaga. Shota Imanaga has a player option for $15 million. So I think he would end up taking that one. $15 million, still your second year, especially depending on how he struggles. But if he pitches fantastically, maybe top 3 Cy Young, you might see him on the market. You might drop out of that deal as well. But the Cubs look nice here. And those moves that they made, bringing in Kyle Tucker. I mean, Kyle Tucker is a difference maker on any team. It's exciting to see him kind of change faces. Of course, we talked about the Astros losing him and what that means for their team. We'll be talking about what it means for the Cubs to get a player like Kyle Tucker, to throw him in a lineup that's had Ian Happ starring in there for a while, and Dansby Swanson you picked up a free agency or two ago. So this Cubs team is looking very nice for 2025. But as I mentioned at the beginning, they finished tied second alongside the St. Louis Cardinals, who we'll be talking about next year. And I mean, they tied, but I mean, this is one of two ways to go down this street. The Cubs took an approach of kind of revamping their team and adding a bunch of talent. The Cardinals didn't do that. They finished 83-79, same as the Cubs. They were 20th in starter ERA, 7th in relief ERA, 22nd in runs, 10 games back of the division, 6 games back of the wild card. Who they ended up losing? No more Paul Goldschmidt. That veteran corner presence of Goldschmidt and Arenado, no longer the case. Goldie is gone, alongside Andrew Kittredge, Matt Carpenter, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, and Keenan Middleton. And who they added was nobody. They have nobody that they added on proper deals here. I would say Nick Anderson is the most notable name that I saw, minor league deal for a guy who when with Tampa was very good. But yeah, they really didn't add anyone, and that's kind of where you gotta scratch your head. The rotation is as follows: Sonny Gray, he's still good. Eric Fetty, Miles Mikolas, and Andre Palante, and Steven Matz is the 1 through 5 there. The lineup: Mason Wynn leads things off at shortstop, Brendan Donovan in left field, and then Wilson Contreras making the move to first base is your starting 3 right there. Alec Burleson, the DH, bats 4th. Nolan Arenado, the third baseman, batting 5th. Lars Newport, center fielder, bats 6th. Jordan Walker in right field, batting 7th. Nolan Gorman at second base, bats 8th. And then Ivan Herrera, the new starting catcher, bats 9th. The bench: Pedro Pajes, Lucan Baker, Thomas Sagesi, and Michael Ciani. And those 4 guys combined have a total service time of 1.341. So, just a bunch of young talent and young guys who they're hoping to stick here. The bullpen, they've got one of the best, Ryan Helsley, in the back end there as a closer. Of course, they got some other notable names: Matthew Liberatore, Jojo Romero, and John King. The notable names there, alongside some guys who are, young in service time. No one on the IL, and then when you take a look into the future, you got Miles Mikolas, Steven Matz, Eric Fetty, and of course that guy I mentioned, Ryan Helsley, as the notable guy there. The 4 of them are on the market next year. So, the Cubs took an approach of adding talent and trying to reshape. The Cardinals took an approach of staying put and hoping the young talent will come through. So, 2 different approaches to the offseason, I guess. Moving on now, we're going to continue down the avenue of just talking about all these teams here quick. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Reds, who came 4th in the division, 1 game ahead of the Pirates. They finished 77-85. They were 16th in starter ERA, 18th in relief ERA, 16th in runs, 16 games back of the division, and 12 games back of the wild card. So, definitely there's the gap there between where the Cubs and Cardinals were and where the Pirates and Reds were. But I think there's a gap in the talent, young talent, I should say, in the farm system that I think the Reds and Pirates have that I don't think the Cardinals and Cubs do, or at least it's a little bit more in their favor. The Reds lost some players here. Ty France gone. Ahmed Rosario take a hike. Nick Martini, Justin Wilson, Luke Maley, Jacob Junis, Fernando Cruz, and of course Jonathan India and Joey Weimer, both saying goodbye as well. Who they brought in, they made a couple of trades. They brought in Brady Singer from the Royals, Jose Trevino from the Yankees, Gavin Lux from the Dodgers, Taylor Rogers from the Giants. They also bring in Austin Hayes, Wade Miley, and Scott Barlow. And of course, Nick Martinez was a free agent. They offered him a qualifying offer, and he took it. So a 1-year deal for him, $21 million, and he is back with the Reds. And he's going to join what I think is a really fun rotation, kind of maybe one of my favorite rotations, not off of talent, but off of, what they could be, because you got Hunter Green, who has the stuff, Brady Singer, who I've loved since he's made his debut with the Royals, Nick Lodolo in the third hole there, Nick Martinez, and then Andrew Abbott. Lovely 1 through 5 there for the Reds. The lineup with TJ Friedel leading things off in center field, Matt McLean bats second, taking over the job from Jonathan India. Ed De La Cruz bats third, the shortstop. Tyler Stevenson, still in my mind one of the most underrated players in baseball. Guy needs to stay healthy though. He's the catcher. He bats fourth. Jake Fraley, the DH, bats fifth. Austin Hayes out there in left field batting sixth. Gavin Lux taking over at third base, bats seventh. Yaimer Candelario, the first baseman, batting eighth. And then Will Benson rounds off that lineup. He's in right field batting ninth. The bench has Jose Trevino, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Santiago Espinal, and Stuart Fairchild. And the bullpen's got Alexis Diaz, Taylor Rogers, Emilio Pagan, Scott Barlow, Graham Ashcraft, Brent Suter, and more. A nice handful of notable names there from the Reds. And then on the IL, they have Spencer Steer listed, who, could make an impact at first base once he can get healthy. But then it's like, what do you do with Candelario? It was luck, could be at third base. Christian Encarnacion Strand has been, he's got the power. And don't forget Noelvi Marte, who, of course, got popped last year with the PEDs, but he'll be back and ready to go if the Reds need him. Of course, Fangraphs has him listed starting in AAA, though, so we'll keep an eye out for that. Taking a look into the future for 2026, of course, the guy who signed the qualifying offer, he'll be back out there. Nick Martinez, Taylor Rogers, Emilio Pagan, Jose Trevino are all hitting the market. The Reds hold club options for Brent Suter at $3 million and $6.5 million for Scott Barlow. And then there's a mutual option for Austin Hayes at $12 million. I think he's going to hope that he can play well enough to get the Reds to agree to bring him back for that, because right now he's at $4 million for this year. So he's going to have to do a lot to earn $12 million from the Reds next year. So we'll see how that goes for Austin Hayes here. But that's what your Reds look like for 2025. I think it could be a fun and exciting year, depending on how the young talent shapes up and how, the guys who've been around now for, a year, 2 years, even 3 years at this point, how that's going to look for them. Because, do we have an Ellie De La Cruz who's going to be popping off and having a great year? Or are we going to see an Ellie De La Cruz who kind of struggles a little bit and, strikes out a bunch? So something to keep watch for once the season gets underway. Speaking of something to keep watch for as the season gets underway, the last team to be talking about here in the Central, your Pittsburgh Pirates, who finished 76-86 last year. They were 15th in starter ERA, 27th in relief ERA, and 24th in runs. Something tells me that starter ERA is going to be much lower this year, depending on how the season goes here. 17 games back of the division from the Brewers and 13 games back of the wild card. They made a couple of interesting moves here, a couple of one-year deals. They ended up losing Brian De La Cruz, Connor Joe, Yasmani Grandal, Aroldis Chapman, Jalen Beeks, Marco Gonzalez, and Luis L. Ortiz. So a couple of veteran old guys who won't be seeing too much maybe around the game these days, and who don't have much left in the tank, and a couple of young prospects who they ended up shipping away or just letting them walk, I guess. They bring in Spencer Horwitz in a deal from the Guardians, and Manuel Valdez in a deal with the Red Sox. Caleb Ferguson is around now, alongside Tim Meza, Adam Frazier, Tommy Pham, Andrew Heaney, and Derek Hall, who's on a non-roster invitee deal, minor league contract there for him. The rotation, the Pirates have this new guy who we saw a little bit of last year. I'm not sure if you remember. His name is Paul Skenes. He can throw up to 101, and he might have a cutter now to go along with the rest of his arsenal. So, we'll see what he does. He's listed as the ace of that Pittsburgh staff here. Of course, he's only played less than a year, so we don't know what he's really about, but people say he's good. Mitch Keller is in the two-hole. Jared Jones, Andrew Heaney, and Bailey Falter is what that rotation looks like entering the year. The lineup has Tommy Pham out there in left field with Brian Reynolds batting second in right field, and then O'Neal Cruz making the permanent move over to center field. So you got the three outfielders in the first three spots of the lineup. Andrew McCutcheon bats the DH, batting fourth. Joey Bart, catcher, bats sixth. Then you have Derek Hall, of course, that guy I mentioned, the non-roster invitee. So Fangraphs has him making the team. He plays first base. Nick Gonzalez playing second base, and then Key Brian Hayes batting eighth, playing third base, and then IKF Isaiah Kainafalefa, the shortstop, bats ninth, with the bench of Andy Rodriguez, Jared Triolo, Adam Frazier, and Joshua Palacios. The bullpen, David Bednar, still listed as the closer there. Caleb Ferguson, Tim Meza, Dennis Santana, Colin Holderman, among other guys. When you take a look at that IL, Spencer Horwitz is on the IL. I'm not sure his return for 2025. Hopefully he gets healthy and back soon. Would love to see him play, of course, and that's why Derek Hall might be listed as that first baseman going forward here. When you take a look at the 2026 free agents, it's basically all of the guys they signed this year. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Andrew Heaney, Andrew McCutcheon, Tommy Pham, Caleb Ferguson, Adam Frazier, Tim Meza, all signed one-year deals, so they're all heading back out there to the market. So, we'll see who gets traded at the deadline, realistically, depending on how the Pirates play. But that's what the team looks like entering 2025. So with that being said, let's talk about these teams here. So, first things first, as I get into it here. 83 and 79 for the Cubs and for the Cardinals. One takes steps forward. They sign... they sign guys like Turner, veteran talent. They bring in Matthew Board. They make some trades. They go get Eli Morgan. They go get Ryan Presley. They go get Kyle Tucker. Like, that is the biggest swing in the division this year. And, that makes a team better, believe it or not. So for the Cardinals, when I looked it up, I generally did not see any notable names that I was like, oh yeah, that guy makes a difference in the team. Generally, I could not. I have it right here. Free agents. Minor league deal, Nick Anderson. Minor league deal, Ryan Velotti, Jose Barrio, Michael Gomez. 4 minor league deals. They brought in Michael Hellman in a trade with the Twins for cash. His service time, 0.029. They claimed off of waivers this guy named Bailey Horn, and they selected in the Rule 5 draft in the AAA phase, Odinair Moscata. And they claimed off a guy from the Marlins. So there wasn't a single contract dealt out. And you were a team that finished 83-79. You lost Paul Goldschmidt, who kind of had been the face of that franchise a little bit. And, there's some talent still here. There's Sonny Gray and guys, who've been around. Nolan Arenado, I guess, is taking the helm from Goldschmidt. But, it's not a team that I think is going to be third place in the division this year. I think one of, if not both of the Pirates and Reds can take those steps up. I think the Brewers did get worse, but I still think they're better than the Cardinals. And I think, that division will kind of come down to the Cubs and the Brewers here. But I find the offseason kind of weak from the Cardinals because a guy like Sonny Gray and Eric Fedde, they're not going to be able to hold that rotation. They were 20th in starter ERA, and they didn't make any changes. They were 22nd in runs. And to my knowledge, I don't think staying with the same guys is going to change that, really. And to be honest, when I look at the lineup, Mason Wynn, young guys, got a great defense, great speed, but the bat we haven't really seen. Jordan Walker, has been a top prospect, but his bat has never come around. He's never been able to adjust to major league level. Nolan Gorman is a home run strikeout kind of guy, so he joins the likes of Patrick Wisdom, who the Cubs cut, the Joey Gallos of the world, where it's, you go out there, you hope to swing for the best. And, I think Gorman can have some offensive success, but the defense then kind of lacks there. You make a move of Wilson Contreras to first baseman to fill in the hole of Goldschmidt. What does he can do there? I feel like we've seen the same Cardinals movie for the last couple of years, and they keep pushing the same product out, thinking it's going to work, and it still hasn't. So instead of trying to supplement it with guys who have been working and trying to make something click, they're going to keep running it back over and over, and eventually, you get to a point where it's like, okay, what's the end game here? What's the goal? So I don't know. I think the Cardinals are in a little bit of a weird phase right now, and I don't know if this is going to be a great year for them. But that's just kind of what I like. You finish tied. You finish 6 games out of the wild card. That's doable. You have talent, so you just bring in some guys. You supplement some guys. And there were holes that could have been filled, and I think there were a couple of guys in the market who, could have made that adjustment maybe. Catcher, you go get maybe a Danny Jansen who was on the market. You want an outfielder maybe to take over for someone. There were options, and I feel like the Cardinals really didn't make use of it. Maybe these young guys that they have, coming up and that they're planning on, allowing some time for, maybe they're the real deal. I don't really know. I know Tink Hence has been someone who's been talked around a lot. Maybe he gets a chance at some point this year. So, I mean, there's some interesting names here, but I don't know. I find it tough for the Cardinals here to kind of bounce back, of course. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see kind of what they can do. I'm not super high and mighty on the Cardinals, but it'll be nice to see if they can shut me up if these guys click and if the product works. But I don't know. I think in the battle between the Cubs and Cardinals, I'm going to be taking the Cubs. 10 out of 10 times. I really like this Cubs lineup here. Showtime and Eminaga, I feel like had a fantastic year. I'm excited to see kind of how he continues his career in the majors here. I'm big fan of him. Dansby Swanson's great. Kyle Tucker, love him. Ian Happ, love him. Pico Armstrong, love him. Vidal Brujan, even. Like, there's some guys I just kind of like as baseball players and as people. And I'm a really big fan of this Cubs team. And I think if you're in Chicago, I think this is the most exciting year you've had since 2016, really, with Rizzo and Baez and Bryan. And I would have the most hope this year. You take a look at that Brewers team. They brought in Nestor Cortez. Yeah, Mark Canha, maybe he's still got something left in the tank, but they lost Willy Adames and they lost Devin Williams. And this is not a diss to Trevor McGill, because I've watched him play. I think he's a good ball player and he's a great pitcher. But if I'm a Brewers fan, I'm used to having Josh Hader. I'm used to then having Devin Williams, guys who are dominant, who have a pitch. Josh Hader's slider, filth. Devin Williams' screwball, that changeup, filth. And McGill's got a nice heater. He's got a nice move, but he is the most not successful. Out of the three, I would have Hader or Williams over McGill. And obviously times have changed. Obviously Hader hasn't been around for a while, and now Devin Williams is gone. I'm a little worried for the Brewers bullpen. They finished second in relief ERA last year. I think that might change. And of course, to be fair, the Brewers they went half the season without Devin Williams. He was hurt for the first 3 months. So the fact that they were second in the relief ERA shows, what kind of bullpen they might have still. So, credit where that is due. But, Jackson Chourio is going to be taking steps up. I still like the lineup a lot. The pitching is where I'll kind of scratch my head a little bit, but they're kind of like the Rays of the NL, where they kind of just throw out guys and they find ways to figure it out. So I'm assuming Trevor McGill will have a great year. I like Garrett Mitchell out there in center field. Joey Ortiz gets a proper shot now at shortstop now that Willie is gone. So it's kind of giving when Correa left and the Astros brought in Jeremy Pena. Joey Ortiz now gets to fill the role of Willie Adames. So big stuff there for the Brewers. That's kind of what that top, trio looks like, but I wouldn't even put the Cardinals in there because, like I said, I think the Reds or the Pirates, one of those teams will take this step up, and I really think it's the Reds' time this year. I've kind of been high on them for the last 2 years, and I feel like I've always been a year ahead still of the Reds. I feel like I'm still waiting for this big step that they need to take, and I don't know if this year was it. I like the moves that they made. They made a bunch of trades. They bring in Taylor Rogers for the bullpen. Check. They bring in Brady Singer for the rotation. Check. You bring in Gavin Lux for the infield. Check. You bring in Jose Trevino for the backup catcher. Check. And the way Tyler Stevenson tends to get hurt. Severino is a solid. Sorry, not Severino. Trevino is a solid starting option there as well for the catcher. So lineup is solid. You got some young talent in there. You want to make sure they take the right steps forward. Rotation, like I said, is one of my favorites just because I like all the guys. Like Hunter Green, love him. Nick Lodolo, love him. Brady Singer, love him. I like the guys there. Bullpen, Alexis Diaz, we're looking for a bounce back for him. Him and David Bednar even for the Pirates. Both of them had kind of down years. They struggled a little bit in the closer role. Bednar more so, but Diaz definitely didn't have his moments there. So you bring in Rogers, who could maybe fill in. Pagan's a good option as well. Scott Barlow, like the bullpen's solid, the bench is good. You got Santiago Espinal, you got CES, Will Benson out there. Of course, Ellie De La Cruz. He's the star. He's that face of that franchise, and I mean, I'm a big believer in the Reds this year. I think the steps that they took and the way the Cardinals did their season, I mean, it really feels like the division will go down to Cubs versus Brewers. But I think the Reds could make a sneaky attempt, and depending on how well their team clicks and how well they can play, I could see the Reds making a push for the division even. So that's something to be excited about if you're a Cincinnati fan. I mean, this isn't a year where you kind of go into it thinking you guys are already dead. This is a chance that you guys could maybe fight. And I think on paper, I would pick the Reds team over the Cardinals team. I don't think I would say the same about the Cubs or Brewers, but like I said, that's baseball, right? You wait for those surprises. You wait for Gavin Lux to have a breakout. Gavin Lux has kind of been a guy who has always been having to play differently for the Dodgers because of how much talent they have, and he's always been that depth piece, that substantially amazing depth piece. Now he's really going to get a chance to be the everyday starter for the Reds and be that guy, and he's not going to be bouncing from second base to the outfield to third base to back to the outfield. Like I believe they're planning on playing him at third base and sticking him there. And if you do that, you give him the everyday reps. Who knows how good Gavin Lux can be. We saw Matt McLain have that breakout last year. He was great for the Reds last year. So there's a lot of fun players here, good names, and I think it's going to be a strong year for Cincinnati. I think it's one of the two teams that takes the jump, though. So Cincinnati could 100% be that team to make that jump, and I think they will. But the Pirates are interesting because they have Paul Skenes. Listen, this guy is going to be legit. I think he finishes top 3 in Cy Young. He might not win the Cy Young this year. He's going to win a Cy Young at some point in his career. I'm excited to watch as many starts as I can. This is the real deal talent. And I haven't been as excited for a young top prospect in a long time. I mentioned this a lot last year when he was making his debut and kind of as the season went along. I'm hoping for less of a leash. I hope, instead of being pulled in the 6th inning at 78 pitches, he can get up to the 80 to the 90 mark, get into the 7th, possibly the 8th inning, because he definitely has, the skill to work through hitters and get through the guys and get to those innings. If the Pirates will let him, of course, you want to make sure he stays healthy so you can keep him on the field, because that's a huge product right there. And if Paul Skenes is going correctly, I feel like that energy and that kind of skill kind of will wear off on Mitch Keller and Andrew Heaney and Jones and the rest of the rotation, and even the rest of the bullpen. I mean, hopefully Bednar can bounce back, and hopefully they got guys who can get them through games. The bullpen's definitely where I would scratch my head. Lineup isn't pretty. They have some fun names. Brian Reynolds, O'Neill Cruz, of course. They still have the love of Andrew McCutcheon, who sticks around there. But it's basically, can you get the guys who are right for you guys? Can you get IKF to be a good IKF and keep Brian Hayes? I mean, these are guys who are defense first, hitting second. But they need the hitting second needs to be a decent hitting second. It can't be an easy out here. I remember when Brian Hayes came into the league first, and I thought this guy was going to be the next Nolan Arenado. He's got an amazing glove and a good bat. That bat really hasn't come around, and I think we're getting to a point where it's, okay, we've had you at third base for a while. You've had your times where you were hurt. You had your times where you were hot. But you need to be more than just a glove. And I think that goes for a lot of these guys, Joey Bart being the catcher. Remember, the Giants thought he was going to be the second coming of Buster Posey, and here he is being the catcher for the Pirates, So I think the Pirates have these options here of, if they click, what do you do? Because if Paul Skenes is throwing, and if the guys in the lineup are batting well, if Brian Reynolds is having a great season, and if O'Neill Cruz, playing center field figures it out, we could be talking about a Pirates team who could be competing for a wild card spot. But if, worse comes to worse and we get to the trade deadline and they're fifth in the division and it just, things didn't go the way they wanted to, but there's still, a good season for Reynolds and Paul Skenes' dominance and whatever. I mean, you trade IKF, you trade Andrew Heaney and Tommy Pham and whoever you can at the deadline. You bring in whatever prospects you can, and then you try to regroup. But I think, with Paul Skenes, unless you extend him to like a 20-year deal, you should be trying to win. So I think if the Pirates get that option and that opportunity this year, they should take it. They should trade for some guys and try to make a team here, because I think, by 2027, the Pirates team either should be competing for a division or they should have traded Paul Skenes by then. Like, that's kind of what it comes down to. And I mean, you're at a time now where you've got some young talent. You obviously have Skenes, and that's the name, right? That's the big headline is Paul Skenes, and what kind of season will he have? But if things go right, the Pirates can be fun, and that's what I think. I think they can battle for fourth, in the division. I honestly do not like the Cardinals team. I disagree with the fact that you don't add anything to the offseason. So I think it'll look something where it's like Cubs first, and then it's like a battle between Cincinnati and Milwaukee for second and third, and then a battle between Cardinals and Pirates for fourth and fifth. That's how I think the season will kind of wrap up, and how the season will play out here with these teams. When you look at the offseason, I mean, the Cubs had the best offseason by far. The Cardinals had the worst. I would say the Reds had second, Brewers third, Pirates fourth maybe. I mean, for the Pirates, I wish they would have signed like a guy to like a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal, like just to lock someone in place for a little bit, because what they do, this constant 1-year deal, is that you keep developing these young guys, and then eventually by the time they hit the market, you haven't supplemented them, you haven't given them the opportunities to try to win for them. And I think Brian Reynolds is one of those guys who have been around and has done really well. And I think O'Neal Cruz is now kind of getting to that point as well, as he rocks in more service time. If they don't start signing guys to 2-year deals, to 3-year deals, I mean, you'll eventually get a point where you'll have an off season where Reynolds will go, and then O'Neal Cruz will go, and then eventually Skenes. So, hopefully they can start doing that. And I think, hey, it's an easy sell point. You want to come play behind Paul Skenes. You want to go and play with these guys. So play for one of the most beautiful ballparks in MLB. I mean, if I had to pick any ballpark to go and see 162 games at, it'd probably be PNC Park. It's a lovely park. So I mean, yeah, I think the Pirates will be good. Reds will be fun. Cardinals, yikes. Cubs. I mean, this is a year for the Cubs, I think, with Kyle Tucker there. It might be only 1 year if he ends up signing elsewhere, but I think he's going to have a strong year. So let's hope for all that stuff there. That's kind of the outlook I have for the NL Central. And, I mean, season's almost here. We'll have to see how it plays out. But, let's see it Cubs, and you know what? Let's see it Reds. That brings us to the end here, so let's talk about the over and unders. Let's start with the team with the highest over and under, and that is the Chicago Cubs. They're over under, according to FanDuel, 86.5. Are they going to win 87 games, or are they going to lose 85 or less? 86 or less, excuse me. I think the Cubs are going to have a good year, and I think they're going to win the division. I think Kyle Tucker's going to be amazing, and I think the additions they've made are going to help out in a big way. I'm excited for this Cubs team, so give me the over. I think they're going to win 89 games, maybe even 90-something. So, good for the Cubs there. Moving on, that brings us to the Brewers, who their over-under comes in at 82.5. I think it's going to be a good battle for them and the Cubs. I think they end up losing it out. I think they might have a chance at a wild card even. Of course, we know how good the NL West is and how good the NL East is. But, they have this young talent. I think Jackson Chourio has a good year again. Maybe it's a sophomore slump year, but I think I believe in the guys here. I think it's going to be closer than we think for that NL Central. So I'm also going to be taking the over on the Brewers at 82.5. I think they clock in about 85 games. And sit around there. Moving on, we've got the Cincinnati Reds, who over and under sits at 79.5. I think it's going to be a good year. I always say this, and I'm always kind of wrong, but I really believe in the rotation. I believe in the lineup. I'm not sure if they're going to make postseason. I don't know how well they'll do in general, but I think 82 games, getting to 500 is 100% on the table. So I'm going to take a third straight over here on the Cincinnati Reds. One of those three will definitely be wrong, but I think the other two will be right. So we'll take 2 of 3 in general. And that brings us to the two teams tied with the same 75.5. Both the Pirates and the Cardinals have 75.5. And that kind of goes to show you, 83 and 79. One team gets to 86.5, and that's the Cubs. And one team goes to 75.5. That's 8 games less than the Cardinals finished last year. Of course, it's a tough offseason. I think the Cardinals struggle, so I'm going to take the under on the Cardinals. And as good as Paul Skenes will be, he only plays 1 every 5 games, and he pitches that. So, I think the Pirates could be fun, and maybe they'll have some success, but I'm also going to take the under on the Pirates. So we got 3 overs and 2 unders. I'm going to have to start making a Google sheet to remember all this because I'm going to kind of forget. I don't even know if I want to track it or not, but that's kind of what I feel like, going over this and when I work on these and kind of how I feel talking in the moment. But yeah, I think the Cardinals struggle. I think the Cubs play well. Reds, Brewers, Pirates, we'll have to see. But that's how we look for 2025 for the NL Central. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up today's DOP. I appreciate you all. Thank you, everybody, so much for clicking on the video here, the episode, whether you're listening to this on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, whichever it is. Thank you very much. I will end it here. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you, buddy, so much. And I will see you for the next DOP on Friday.